So, Angela, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing amazing. It's morning. I'm a morning person, so the best time.
Awesome, awesome. And where are you based?
Right now, I'm in Mexico, Playa del Carmen, and I'm a digital nomad. So I'm based in the world, right? Lately, been spending time a lot of it in London and now in Mexico. And yeah,
Awesome. How long have you been in Mexico? So you wait. So okay, first of all, I hear an accent, and then you mentioned that you were in London, but now you're in Mexico. So I'm just getting a little bit confused. Like,
yeah.
ah. First of all, where are you from?
I'm from Russia originally.
Okay, and you lived in UK.
Yes, I lived there for 11 months and planning to go back there for not sure how long.
Okay.
I'm what they call digital nomad. So I'm location independent and I can live wherever the hell I want to live at any moment. And yeah, so I changed quite a few locations over the past decade.
Amazing. And yeah, so right now you're currently in Mexico. What brings you there?
Um, I don't know, destiny. When I was in London, I'm like, I need a break. I need to go somewhere. I need a change of things. And there was a program that sounded really cool. It's called Remote Year, and it's a company. They organize living in different countries for people who don't have to be in some location. So if you work online, if you have your business, if you can work remotely, they take you to different countries and organize like your living situation and everything, and cultural experiences, all of that. But so I joined the company, and that's why I came to Mexico as a part of their program. While being in the program, I realized that it's gonna completely ruin my lifestyle. Like it just wasn't compatible with what I do, with how I live. So I quit it. And I'm like, okay, I'm already in Mexico. What the hell do I do?
Right.
And like, well, I haven't been to the beach for a while. So let me fly from Mexico City, where I was, to Playa del Carmen because I knew one person here who is an online coach. I'm like, how is it over there? It's like, fine, we're loving it here. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. So that's how I ended up there. I literally got the ticket for the next day, and yeah, and I came here.
That's amazing. Was that through like one recommendation?
Yeah, I knew that. I
Wow.
knew the guy. He's a good guy. I know that my kind of person. And when you get a recommendation from those people who like they're very similar to you, like, okay, they find it really good, so I'm gonna go there and check it out.
That's a trusted source, that's for sure. But again, thank you for your time. So we
And my
kind of
pleasure.
we kind of got acquainted or exchanged words through, I think it was like a mutual friend or someone, a mutual person that we know. Um,
Sergey Young.
Sergey, yes, Sergey. I think it was probably from one of his lives. You mentioned about the material you really enjoyed, and I was like, "Who is this lady?" And that was when I went onto your page, and I thought, "Wow, it's really incredible the stuff that you share." You talk a lot about uh, brain and nutrition, and just so much to do with food and how it is synergistic with the body and like you've got this real connection with food, not just a case of oh it tastes really nice, but just you like it's almost like a very tailored approach where you'd say that like all foods are adaptogenic. I remember
Yeah.
speaking to you one time, and you'd mentioned about I think maybe a post or something that I'd spoken about with regards to adaptogenic herbs, and then you suggested that your thought process on it is all foods are adaptogenic, and I was like, wow. I was like, that's quite interesting because to a degree, I would think that, but I would never, I guess, verbalize it. So let's have, first of all, introduction to who you are and how you got into food. And so what is it you do exactly and how did you get into it?
Yeah, what I do now is a little bit different. So I recently transitioned to brain performance flow state coaching for entrepreneurs who want to achieve a lot and they don't have time to waste on ineffective brain states. It has to do with nutrition and lifestyle adjustments. Before that, I used to do a lot of weight loss and fitness and health coaching, mostly on the nutrition side, helping people to use nutrition, to use food as a tool to change the way they feel, the way they look, the way their body works. That's I've been doing for the past decade of my life, even more. How I got into that, it's a different story. As a teenager, I had an autoimmune condition and nobody knew what the hell was wrong with my body. Like it was actually working fine, but I had these white spots on my skin that would appear randomly. And they didn't cause any problems. The skin was totally fine, but they would just without color. And so doctors didn't know what to do. And I had to figure out myself what was going on there. And I started reading a lot. And I started learning that food does impact the way our body works a lot. And when we change what we eat, we change how our body works. That's how it all started when I was 12 or 13 years old. And I reversed my condition. And after that, once you understand the power of food, once you experience it so intimately, it's hard to not see it everywhere else.
Did you lose faith in the doctors then, or did you just have more faith in yourself? What was your thought process on that?
I realized that people with degrees and expert status do not have all the answers. So I didn't lose faith in anything. I believe medicine is powerful, but I realized nobody has all the answers. And also I realized just because somebody doesn't know something, it doesn't mean that the answer doesn't exist. It just knows that they don't know it, right? And facing myself, I realized I have the power to change the way I feel, the way I look, the way my body works by changing what I eat, what I do with my lifestyle, how I feel, what I think. And again, once you make this connection, it's hard to unmake it.
Yeah, I'm sure. You can't go back once you have all this power unleashed, right?
Yeah. It's like in Matrix, you take the red pill and that's it. You can't not know.
Yeah. Welcome to Wonderland. I can't remember what Morpheus says to Neo at the time, but yeah, it makes sense. I know you'd mentioned one time that cooking makes us human. Could you explain what that means?
Yes. So I read this book many years ago, and it's called Catching Fire, How Cooking Made Us Human. And it's written by an anthropologist. I don't remember the name of him. But in the book, he makes this point very powerfully that it seems that the evolution of human brain happened when we learned how to use fire to learn how to cook. And that we are different in that sense, we human beings compared to other animals, because other animals are kind of stuck with the food sources that their digestive system can't work with, right? And they can't do much about it. If you're a cow, you're going to be eating grass or, maybe a couple of other sources that your body can digest and can get nutrition from. You're not going to be eating anything else. When we learned how to cook, we surpassed that. We're like, okay, our digestive system cannot, for example, digest dried beans, but if we cook them, it's perfectly fine, right? So we have that system. And now all the food that was around us, it was available for us to eat, even though before we couldn't get all the nutrition, right? Even take things like those harder, greener vegetables, right? Our digestive system is not really that good at digesting them in raw state, but when we cook them, we allow our digestive system to work through all of these fibers and different things that prevent digestion of different nutrients. And now we can extract many more nutrients. And so once we got these nutrients available to our body, but also to our brain expanded. It's like, oh my God, I have all this nutrition available. Now we can grow in size, right? And that's what these scientists argue happened to our brain, why it evolved beyond other, animals, other mammals.
Yeah. It's quite fascinating though, isn't it? I don't know how long it took for us to go through maybe mineral deprivation in not understanding about cooking food. And then all of a sudden it was like a miracle. We can cook all different types of foods, and now our body starts to flourish. We can live longer. We can now unlock these hidden vitamins and minerals and thrive. And it was like, why didn't someone give us the key a bit longer? Like, I don't know how many thousands of years it took us premature death to figure out. But it's really fascinating, don't you think?
It is fascinating. And what I argue that this evolution is still happening, but because it takes so long, we're not noticing that. But we do know that, for example, poor nutrition makes the brain shrink. So probably the other thing happens the other way too. When you really care about your nutrition, when you supply abundance of nutrients beyond, what we need to survive, the brain probably is taking notice and also, developing in all these different ways. Maybe we're going to develop some extra abilities that we don't know we could develop, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about, nutrition for the brain. We might become superhuman at some point. It's going to take time, but
yeah. It's like we're starting to understand that certain foods will make us think better, feel better. And it's not all the same for everyone. Well, there's certain types of foods which is good for most people. But what's quite interesting is just genetics itself. Like some people, it will trigger certain things in their genetics to make them more superhuman in their own particular way. That in itself is quite fascinating as well. One thing I want to speak about is chocolate. I know you're a big fan of chocolate. I've seen it in your stories. I know you've mentioned it before. I'm like, okay, I like chocolate, but this lady, she really loves her chocolate. So where do your fascination with chocolate come from, and why do you have it so frequently?
Where it comes from, I have no idea. Maybe it was like, some shamans have their plant that kind of connects them to the universe or whatever. I don't know. But since I was a kid, I love chocolate. Obviously, when you're a kid, chocolate is this, sugary candies and all of that stuff. But I could eat, and I kid you not, because it happened, eat 1.5 kilos of chocolate, and I'll be fine,
Wow. Wow.
Chocolate since I was a kid was my favorite dessert, my favorite thing. I would put cacao everywhere. I just loved it. But because in the way I was consuming it with a lot of sugar, in desserts or candy, it wasn't good for me, obviously. So I thought the chocolate wasn't good for you because of that reason. And I didn't do much research back then. But then I started to get into nutrition and this concept of superfoods, and cacao plant being is one of those superfoods that was in a positive way referred by many cultures. I'm like, okay, what's all that about, right? And is it really bad, or the sugar and other ingredients making it bad, right? And so I started reading more of that. And I realized that what was bad about chocolate, the only thing that is bad is excess sugar and all the other possible, ingredients that's just not supposed to be there. Cacao plant itself, it's full of antioxidants. It's one of the richest sources of antioxidants and different compounds. We only studied 1,500 or something different compounds that is in chocolate plant itself, the fruit and the beans. And cacao is one of those superfoods, that neuroscientists bring scientists talk a lot about, because it has all these qualities that make it superfood for the brain. It increases blood circulation. There are compounds that are similar to marijuana that make compounds that are called bliss molecules in chocolate. So they make you feel happier. They make you feel like higher.
Well, it's not the sugar itself that is making us feel high and happy. It's the actual cacao, the compound, as you call it. Okay.
Our scientists actually argue that what makes chocolate addictive is not the sugar, but that other bliss molecule that is anandamide, that is present in flow state, for example, or alternate states of consciousness. The brain produces it, but also a couple of foods like chocolate and black truffles have it higher levels of it naturally. What is amazing about cacao, it also has other phytochemicals that make that bliss molecule stick around for longer. It slows down the breakdown of that molecule. And then again, there are other compounds that also stimulate the production of dopamine, of serotonin. Also, they noticed that, for example, phytochemicals in cacao bean, they tend to accumulate in the same regions that are in charge of learning and memory, right? And there are quite a lot of studies about how people who eat a lot of chocolate, like obviously darker chocolate, they have better scores when they do like memory tests or other cognitive tests. Also, there is actually, it's been published in New England Journal of Medicine or something, some study that countries who consume more chocolate per person have more Nobel laureates, people, who are like the smartest, who do all the breakthrough discoveries in science. Wow. So it's been published in quite a serious journal. And I don't know, that's why I love chocolate. Also local tribes here in Mexico, and ancient local tribes like Maya, Aztecs, who were one of the most developed civilizations, they considered cacao to be food of the god, and they gave it to shamans to strengthen the connection to the world, beyond.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. This is deep stuff. Let me just take a deep breath. Hold on that thought for a second, because I want to come back to that. But I also want to talk about just cacao itself. I mean, there's such a range of cacaos which is available. I would say probably the vast majority, if I go to the grocery store to look for chocolate, most of it is going to be garbage with a lot of sugar in it. And there's different forms, like you've got like powdered forms, you've got cacao nibs. And yeah, you've got different percentages of chocolate. And even when I've looked for decent chocolate, it always seems to come present with sugar a lot of the time. So how does a person know the difference between ones which have all of the great active compounds and the ones that do not have all of the sugar that's in there? And yeah, just to know what is good and what's not as good, basically.
Well, that's a great question. And the good stuff is in the natural stuff. So the cacao solids themselves. So the higher cacao solids, the higher the percentage of cacao in chocolate, the better it is for you. And that's when you look at dark chocolate bar, it says, for example, 55% or 65 or 75%. And what it means is the percentage by weight of cacao solids. Cacao solids is everything that comes from cacao plant. So it's cacao powder, but it's also cacao butter that's in the same bean. They just usually separate them to make chocolate. I used to have my own chocolate company. That's why I know so much about the process also of making it. Yeah, but
that shows the love. If you decide to make a company out of it, like, okay, all right, this is deep. Oh, please continue.
Yes, so the higher the percentage of cacao, the better it is, right? On milk chocolate, the cacao percentage is so little that they don't even put it out there. So to give you an idea, an average milk bar chocolate, you'd be lucky if they're like 10% of cacao, because cacao is also expensive. It's one of the disappearing commodities, like the crops constantly getting some diseases, being destroyed. It's quite a, call it, it's a very difficult plant to sustain, like big volumes of cacao trees, right?
Right.
And so cheaper chocolate, they don't put a lot of it in. They might put other stuff in that tastes like chocolate, but it's not actual chocolate. So what I'm trying to say is milk chocolate really has very little to do with actual cacao plant.
Wow.
And the studies that been done that show all of the benefits that cacao can give you, they've been done on chocolate bars with 85% and higher. Specifically, if we are talking about brain health and gut health and mood boosting properties, you'll need to go 85 and higher.
Right. Okay. So people can't just go to the shop. Yeah, I'm going to eat some chocolate. Has to be at least 85. It's very hard to stomach. Not going to lie. I recently was gifted some chocolate, and I think I just cracked open the 93% one, and I was like, I can't eat much of these. How do people do it? Like, it's not easy. What would you advise for people who are going above the 70, or would you say 80? What's the best ones? Is it 80?
85 and higher.
85 and higher. Those are hardcore people like yourself, you know, the chocolate connoisseurs.
Yeah.
So for people to progress to these high-end chocolate bars, what would you suggest they can do to make it more palatable?
Mm-hmm. Start with whatever chocolate you can, tolerate, and work your way up. Our taste buds adjust. So every 10 days, our taste buds, most of them completely die off, and there is a new generation of them coming up, right? So you're gonna develop tolerance to that. Also, I believe that you develop tolerance in your gut because bitter compounds like cacao, they tend to take time getting used to, because it's kind of like mild stress for the body. A lot of those bitter compounds like cacao, they have certain compounds that are a little bit more stressful than pleasurable. It's kind of like giving your digestive system, your gut, your taste buds a little bit of stress with a lot of benefits after, right? And I believe, although it's not like scientifically proven, nobody really took the time to do that. I believe that you need to build up that tolerance, just like one person could develop tolerance to, let's say, alcohol, right? It's poison. In like maybe mild dosages, it can have this hormetic effect when it's a little bit stressful, but there might be benefits for certain organs. The same happens to a lot of those like bitter compounds that have, again, like all these antioxidants and compounds. They stress the cell, but then they give you the benefits. The cell gets stronger. So our gut microbiome, our taste buds are kind of like that. You build up the tolerance, right? I now eat 100% chocolate, and it even tastes sweet to me.
Oh my God.
That's how, but it took time.
I just find it hard to believe. I'm trying my best on 93, and it is a damn struggle. I think I threw it in my smoothie, and with the other flavors, it made it palatable. But to eat it by itself, I'm thinking I need to take deep breaths. I need to do a prayer. But that's great. That's great. And the goal is the more I get towards the 100%, the least I will even tolerate the idea of having anything lower than 85%, anything like that. This tastes fake. Ugh, I don't want that. That is the goal. Yeah, what I'd like to do is to go more over the, you was talking about the Aztecs and the Mayans and how they, about the chocolate there. Let's get into that.
Well, I don't really have much to say about that. I wasn't there.
Oh, right. So what's the fascination with chocolate there? What's the history on the chocolate there?
Well, they probably noticed that chocolate had this effect when your brain would start working better. And I honestly did not do that much reading. I don't
Right.
think there is a lot of reading. It's one of the ancient civilizations, and I don't think chocolate was considered to be uh, like the center of their development. So there is not so much literature. We just know that traditionally that's what they would do. They called it food of the gods, and they would give it to spiritual people to get connection, to higher realms, and to give guidance to the rest of the tribe of like what to do.
Yeah.
Crows
Yeah.
don't come on time, so what do we do?
What's your thoughts on fortified foods? I know you
Mhm.
talk about nutrition a lot, and you talk about, I know I've seen just a range, like a mixed platter of fruit that you eat on a regular basis, and like loads of different seeds and nuts, and like lots of micronutrients, minerals, and stuff. Which a lot of natural stuff, which is great. In certain other countries, like UK, there's a lot of fortified foods. I'd like to know your thoughts on that difference
Mhm.
between fortified and that and getting natural. Can a person who eats lots of fortified food obtain great immunity, good level of fitness as someone who eats natural?
Mm. So it's a complex question to unpack. It has a lot of parts, right?
Mm.
So natural foods, nutrients from foods, they are always absorbed and metabolized better by the body. It's like the body knows what to do with it. We've evolved eating natural foods, right? Not supplements. So, and it's been shown that the body metabolizes and uses more effectively nutrients that come in food form compared to supplement form. Do supplement work? They do work. And how we know that they do work: when people have severe deficiencies caused by deficiency in certain vitamin mineral, when people have, for example, bleeding gums when you don't get vitamin C. When you give that vitamin C in a supplement form, people get better and those symptoms disappear. So we know those work, but it seems they work less effectively because when they also analyze, like, for example, if you consume supplement, there is some of that supplement going to end up in your urine and you're going to be peeing it out. And also some supplements can cause problems on their own when you consume them in not appropriate form or amounts, right? People start develop different symptoms. So the bottom line here is supplements in nutrients in food work better. They are also gentler to the body. The body knows how to get enough, what it needs, and then to remove the rest. Um,
Mm.
can, like you ask, can a person be,
I guess
well,
like flourish and live a healthy life on fortified foods.
so here's the thing. We don't know everything there is to know about food. Like, we just don't. Nutrition is a very young science that we only discovered vitamins at the beginning of 20th century. That when the first vitamins were discovered, right? For now, we know that there are 30 plus essential nutrients, but we're still discovering. So some nutrients were discovered, like in the past few years. So we're still discovering what the body actually needs, like full spectrum, right? And so when, for example, some company, meal replacement company would say, we put everything in this meal so you don't have to worry about anything and you're going to get everything to be healthy and fit. The problem is that statement: we don't know everything. So how can you put everything in the bottle if you don't know everything in the first place, right? So when the person starts taking supplement, even though on paper it's everything, they're still not getting everything that is in Whole Foods. Like, you cannot put apple in a peel.
I
Like,
think yeah, I think companies are very careful with wording that. I mean, they probably wouldn't say everything, but they would. There's always a lot of careful wording. Always make sure you eat a balanced diet, but take this as well. You know, um, yeah. Even with fortified foods, there's definitely there's definitely careful wording. Otherwise, the company can get sued, right? You can't just say, "Oh, live off throwing food in the microwave that is fortified." Um,
um,
there's,
yeah,
there's
but there is a wording that you can kind of imply it. not directly saying it.
Ah,
And
there we go.
yeah.
And that's, I think that's what's used. But so that's interesting. Like, it's very important to understand that there's much that we still need to learn with natural foods and how it works synergistically with different types of humans. So we can't really give full answers on where fortified foods comes in this picture either, really, because it's not. Sorry.
No, what I was just trying to say is that we don't know that everything that the body, the brain, the mind needs to thrive and to be healthiest and fittest self, right? And so if somebody decides, well, I'm just not going to eat good diet, I'm going to eat supplements. Well, we don't know exactly how healthy body works yet. Like everything, we don't know. We are very young and understanding how all that works. So if you decide to go with supplements, then you're basically saying that you're gonna limit yourself to certain nutrients that we know about, and you're gonna disregard all the possible other nutrients and compounds that might be necessary, essential, and might be influencing your health. So you're gonna say oh, whatever, I don't care about that. I just care about the small part that we know about, and I'm gonna supplement with those nutrients.
Well, I'm specifically talking about fortified foods, not directly supplements. Possibly we could talk about that a little later, but it's more to do with foods that have been fortified, stripped of nutrients, and then they've decided to add it back in there from the laboratory.
Yeah. So they fortify in most countries things like bread or some paste, like baking mixes, foods that a lot of people, or breakfast cereals, food that a lot of people would consume in the modern world, right? Hoping that that will prevent a lot of deficiencies. And so those fortified foods, they work. For example, if somebody doesn't eat, I don't know, let's say B1 vitamin, but it is added to all the cereals, to all the bread. So now they do eat it, and it does work. So in that sense, fortified foods, they help because people used to die of nutrient deficiencies, developing all these diseases. So from that perspective, it is good. But it is not that good because we don't really know how it interacts with the rest of our diet, and whether somebody overdoses in those fortified foods on certain nutrients or not, and how it affects their health as a whole.
Like long-term effects you're talking about on eating fortified foods.
Yeah, maybe you're going to be overdosing on some nutrient that in excess will be causing problems.
We still don't know. This world is so complex and interesting. What I find quite fascinating as well is people adapt very strongly to certain types of diets without fully understanding the full spectrum of foods that we have available for us. They decide, do you know what? I am going to be carnivore, or I'm going to be vegan. And they adopt this dogmatic approach, and they feel really religious about it. If you try to tell them anything which is outside of that framework, they will argue with you, and it's quite interesting because even I would say the more intelligent you are, the more you realize that you can't do that, and it makes me question: are these people feeble-minded? I shouldn't say that. But I do think to myself, how is it you become so dogmatic on eating one type of food? It's interesting. It works for some people, but we need to take a wide approach. That's my thought process. I could be wrong. I'd like to ask you your thought process on that. A person or people that adopt a food style that is trendy, and they're like, do you know what? I think I'm going to work with that. What's your thoughts on that?
First of all, I tried almost every diet out there. I was fruitarian, I was vegan, I tried to live on juice, I was carnivore, I was keto, you name it, I did it for a year or more. That's why I personally understand this kind of thinking, what people usually look for, and what you can experience physically and mentally. So what I learned, we always search for clarity, for simplicity. When you go on a diet and a connection, so clarity, simplicity, connection. When you go on a diet, you kind of hit three of those. Clarity, you're now finally clear on what you eat, what you don't eat, and you finally can make choices easier and faster. Simplicity, now there is much less choice, and even though we think we want more choice, it actually makes life more complex, and you have to actually think through a lot more choices than when you limit yourself. Like carnivore, now you don't have to think about most of the foods, you just eat one kind of food. So it makes life simple. Connection, you become part of the tribe. You might not have your own identity very strong, but now you're part of the tribe, and you can say, this is me, this is my people, and this is what we believe in, right? Without a lot of like, kind of like substitution for religion, but in a different way for people who are not into really religious stuff or any other spiritual stuff. So for that purpose, you know, that's why a lot of people go to diets. And then they would explain it, well, because it's healthier, because, I don't know, I help the planet, or we kill less, I don't know, animals, and we make it more sustainable. People start explaining, but we know from science, people make decisions with emotions and they justify it with logic. And that's what those diet people do. They think they're logical, whereas all of it is about emotions. And the diet and emotions that the diet provides. And I know it again, because I was there. I know how it works in my mind. So that's what I think about, diet tribes and why they come into existence, and why people stick with them so religiously, because it becomes part of your identity.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, I don't know, makes me want to give certain people a warm hug. Like, I understand now. Okay. And what is your approach when it comes to food? Like when you are making your food choices, let's say you're going to be shopping for the week. How are you going to make that decision?
Over the years, I hope that I developed quite a scientific mind. So I always look at science first, and then check it, with the rest, like of my body, my gut, how it all works. So we do know that we have 30 plus essential nutrients, and we know approximately of how much a human being of a certain age, gender, weight would need, right? So for quite a while, what I did is like, okay, so these are nutrition requirements for me as a female, 34-year-old female. So these are requirements for me, certain height, certain weight. Okay, let me figure out what are the foods that will meet these requirements in the most natural for me way, like the foods I love, but also that's going to meet those requirements. And so I would put into this, the very like detailed nutrition calculator, all the foods, all the meals that I tend to eat. I'm like, okay, I tend to be low on this and that. In what foods that I love, I can find that. And so I would tweak my meals. And so at this point, after all these experiments and, learning about different nutrients in different foods, I eat certain foods. Yeah, I love them, but I also know that these foods deliver all of the nutrition I need and more. And that's now when I shop, I just have a list of those foods that I know satisfy my nutrition requirements, that I know I love, that I know work for my body and for my gut. And I just stick to food groups, usually foods that I love, and I try to introduce variety by changing certain foods in certain groups. Like, I don't know, instead of Brussels sprouts, I'm going to get broccoli, or some other food. Instead of like beef, I'm going to get lamb. Instead of chicken eggs, I'm going to get like duck eggs. That's how I introduce variety, right? But that's my thought process. And that's what I actually try to do for most of my clients when we work on their nutrition. Like, okay, so these are the requirements for you, and I'm going to take care of that. So what foods do you love? Let's figure out how we can cover your requirements with the foods that you love and make it a part of your routine.
That sounds really, really interesting. Very comprehensive. How do you calculate your mineral intake? I mean, a lot of people will probably, it's easy to work out macros, but how do you calculate your nutrition? You calculate your nutrition. Are you talking about macros? Are you talking about minerals and vitamins?
Vitamins, minerals, and macronutrients, right? So there is data on how much approximately, like, it's not precise science. But we do know approximate amounts of vitamins, minerals, of proteins, of fats, of carbohydrates. If you're talking about balanced diet, obviously there are different approaches, but we do have data about like how much approximately we need. So what I did is I just put in my data. There are those software, programs for nutritionists, nutrition coaches. So I put in all my data and it gave me, this breakdown of all of my micronutrients and macronutrients.
Awesome.
And I used that, and I used other software and databases of foods to see where those nutrients are available. And I put those together. And again, I also advise myself, like, what do you actually love and going to stick with eating, right? And I put those also together, and I created my my own like meal plan way of eating that is natural to me, but also I know that it's based on science.
That's really cool. And yeah, I think that's really important, because a lot of people focus quite heavily on just macros and nothing else. I want to lose weight. That's all you're hearing. I want to lose weight. You mean you want to lose fat? Yeah, you need to maybe look at everything rather than just macronutrients. I wanted to, yeah, sorry, I was going to say something.
Yes, I was saying, can you pause for a moment? I need to figure out my power source for the laptop.
Yeah, sure. Go for it. Okay, cool. So power supply in your laptop now?
Yes. Power supply is back online.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing, I just wanted to mention, when you travel, people think, oh, it's such a cool idea. You travel to beautiful destinations. One thing, like, the environment, the logistics very often go out of the window. And so you got to be really flexible. Like where the power supply is now. Like it's all over the apartment in Mexico, but yeah.
There we go. There we go. So, yeah, a lot of people think, I want to lose weight. And they don't really think so much about the bigger picture, like everything, the whole spectrum of food and how it all works in a person's body. And it seems to me like you've got it all together. And I like that. That's really cool. I'm still trying to figure things out myself. I try and have a wide spectrum of different foods. I understand my habits when I eat certain things and how I respond when I eat those foods, like how I respond to life. And it fascinates me. One of the things I notice is, even for a genetics test, is like if I have something sweet, I become super excited and I need to eat more sweet stuff. So if I'm on a cyclical ketogenic type of diet, I do throw some carbs in there, which is fine. But it's a way of keeping body fat levels low and looking great. And, balancing, having a steady energy between fat sources and carbohydrates. So I would like to say I'm metabolically flexible. But one thing I'd like to dive into is, I understand that when I have sweet stuff in my diet, all of a sudden, I just have this crazy appetite to want to have more sweet stuff, even if it comes from a natural source like fruit. If I have sugar, then that's like cocaine. That's it. I'm just fallen off and I'm just like raiding, you know, I'm just pushing people down aisles in the supermarket and I'm just like eating bars straight from the shelves and security is trying to pull me out the store and stuff. I'm like, do you know what? It's best if I keep away from it. But even with fruit, if I have a bit of fruit, I find that my appetite grows quite a lot, which is quite fascinating. When I've looked at a lot of your posts, I see that you eat quite a lot of fruit. And that is really fascinating because I'm looking at your physique and you have really tight abs. So I'm sure lots of people would love to eat a lot of fruit and be lean as well. And be able to keep their appetite under control. Like, so there's a lot of thoughts going through my head right now. How do you do it? And how could people, how can people eat fruit and just maintain, like, obviously fruit is important, but you need to know like what types and perhaps how much to eat. Yeah, just help a brother out and help other people out, I'm sure.
There are so many things that you mentioned, you know, so many things to unpack. Just one question, how do you do it? I get it so often, but the reply that I give people lose enthusiasm. First of all, you know, I train every day. I've been training for 20 years. It makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. You know,
Sorry, did you say 20 years?
Yes, I'm 34 now. I started training when I was 13, 14, like in the gym. Before that, I did athletics. Like at school, I was really good at sprinting, jumping, all of that stuff. You know, physical training teachers, they loved me. Like I was the fittest kid there. So you want to take that into account. You know, when you train every day, a lot of things are much more different than when you barely exercise and move, right? So, second thing, for ripped body physique, you know, if you want to stay lean, if you have quite a healthy metabolism, it doesn't really matter how many carbs you eat as long as you stay in your caloric target. If people watch what I eat on Instagram and they calculate my calorie intake, it always stays around 2000, maybe a little bit less, on some days a little bit more. I'm very calorie aware. That I developed during all of these years of experimentation, right? So I eat my carbohydrates and I eat my fruit, but I do not eat 3-5 kilos of fruit, you know, on top of a lot of other food, overshooting my calories. I know my numbers, you know, that's why I eat that much fruit. And I also know that that much fruit adds up to a certain number of carbohydrates, usually around 170 per day. And I'm really strategic about that. When I eat my fruit, it's only one plate. When the other carbohydrates I eat, it's just a couple of lentils or, you know, some sort of beans. So again, I know my numbers. That's why I'm able to do that. I'm not just randomly throw stuff in without any, you know, understanding of how it all works. And I also know my activity levels, and I notice how my physique changes. Like I've been experimenting again for so many years. I know how my body works. And that's why I eat a certain amount of fruit. And also a lot of people don't realize I don't eat bread. I don't eat any added sugar, zero. I've been doing that for years, right? So if people can do that, eat zero added sugars, zero flour, more often than not, they can tolerate quite a lot of fruit.
I'm guessing, obviously, with the sugar that comes from fruit, because of the dietary fiber, it's going to help with digestion. Being active is going to be helpful.
I eat fruit also only one point in my day, right after my training, or, you know, I train in the morning and I can have my fruit like in the middle of the day. So once a day, when my digestion is active, when I'm in carb depleted state. There is also, you know, science to it. I don't randomly eat fruit right before going to bed.
Right.
That's where also your body, you know, utilizes glucose the best, like earlier in the day.
A couple of questions came to mind then, but I'll think with the last one and try and work my way back. So What is the last meal you have before bed? Like what sort of time before bed? How many hours or what sort of time before bed would be the last meal that you have?
4 hours before bed, I've been, especially over the course of past 3 months, I've been religious about it. 3, 4 hours before bed, I have nothing. The reason being a little bit neuroscience. Our circadian rhythm, our 24-hour clock, and all the processes connected to that, they are very sensitive to a couple of things. Light, when we see different kinds of light, and second, food intake, right? That actually restarts our circadian rhythm. And one neuroscientist, Andrew Huberman, you know him, he once said, changing your eating time by 2-3 hours, it's like giving yourself a mini jet lag every time you do it. So the next day, over the course of a couple of days, your whole metabolism is going to be a little bit off. Like you're not going to be sleeping that well, you're not going to be mentally as sharp. And after I heard that, I'm like, it's exactly how I feel when I switch my eating time or when I eat closer to bed, right? And after that, I'm like, I'm going to be eating 3-4 hours before bed, no matter what.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, I'm going to fast a little bit longer, eat earlier, but I want to be my best. I want my mind to work, the sharpest it can work. And that's why I eat 3-4 hours before bed.
That's amazing. Do you do the same with regards to drinking as well? Or do you drink tea and stuff close to bed? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if you drink too close to bed, a lot of liquids, like let's say less than 1 hour, 90 minutes, depends on the amount of liquid, obviously. You usually would wake up and go to the bathroom. For me, it happens like this. I drink, 30 minutes before bed, I'm gonna wake up. I don't drink like 1 hour, 90 minutes, any liquids, and I don't wake up. And I like to stay in bed throughout the whole night, so I don't drink any liquids close to my bedtime. For me, 90 minutes, it's very safe, like time.
Right.
Obviously there is variation, but for me, that's what I found worked. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on, there's lots of people who have this round number of having 2 liters of water a day. Obviously, it's going to vary on activity levels and body size and all that sort of thing. But like, what's your thoughts on whether a person would need to drink less if they're eating more fruits and vegetables than those who decide to have more water?
Definitely, that's a huge factor. Hydration is not from just plain water. Even coffee is hydrating. It is still liquid. It makes you a little bit, it has a diuretic effect, meaning making you going to pee a little bit more, but you still get more liquid than you pee out, right? But then also fruit, vegetables, depending on the fruit and vegetable and how you cook them, they have a lot of water, sometimes 70, sometimes 80, sometimes even 90% for like lettuces and things like that. So you do get liquid from those too. The more you eat, the less water you'll need. Also soups, all kinds of liquids. It's not, or if you drink, I don't know, maybe somebody really loves milk and they drink like a gallon of it, it doesn't disappear. It's still, a lot of liquid. So yeah, it does go to your hydration status, all of this stuff.
Right. Your hydration quota for the day. All right. I know you're very much into, I don't know, you seem to be buzzing a lot of the time. And I'm like, she's smoking something. What are you taking? Energy levels looks really good. And I know that you've mentioned about flow state, about achieving flow state through food. So, I'd be very intrigued to understand how you do that with what type of food. How does a person figure out this formula? I think that's the ultimate goal. I think everybody, who doesn't want flow state in their life? I think every human being, that's what we're trying to live for, So if you're able to just get it all the time, Please,
Not,
show me the way. No.
not all the time. You see,
Right.
flow state is a very resource demanding state. You don't want to be in the flow all the time. It's going to be very, what do you call it, draining on your nervous system and your body. So you want to be in the flow, I don't know, maybe like 90 minutes a couple of times per day. That's what you want to be. The rest you want let your system to recover. It's like with dopamine, you know, in your brain. Yeah, it's a molecule of drive, of motivation, of getting after it. But it also, too much, can screw up your brain. You'll be, you know, going for all the, I don't know, instant gratifications things. And then also it actually, when you get more dopamine, the receptors for dopamine get desensitized and sometimes they even die. So you have a lot of motivation and then you'll have zero. And, you know, you'll also hear a lot about like dopamine fast, that you need to remove certain stimulation, you know, for a period of time to let your nervous system to recover. Even, you know, I work with professional athletes, and they know that it's not just the body that needs to recover, it's the nervous system that needs to recover, right? And so when it comes to flow state, yeah, you want that when you need it, but then once you're done with that activity, you won't let your body, your nervous system, your brain to recover.
Right. Okay. Talk to me.
Yeah.
How do we get this?
Of course, you know, there are a lot of physical like routines and behaviors that you gotta do in order to even get a chance to get into flow. Specifically, let's take sleep, right? If you're sleep deprived, forget about flow. No food gonna make it happen.
Right.
So that's, you know, there's physical aspect of it, like routines, behaviors, maintaining certain level of physiological health. That comes first. And then when you get into food for flow states, but also different states, you know, focus, attention, like all these states, they have certain neurochemical signature. What it means is in our brain, when we are in a flow state, for example, there are certain neurochemicals that are present, and they've been measured by neuroscientists, by flow researchers. So for example, flow state, it has specific signature of 5 neurotransmitters. We get dopamine, we get serotonin, we get an anandamide, the one in chocolate, we get endorphins, and we get norepinephrine or adrenaline in the brain. So those 5. And those 5, they do rely on nutrition, and they are influenced by nutrients that we consume. So let's start, you know, for example, with dopamine that we already talked about. Dopamine is made from L-tyrosine. That's an amino acid that's present in different foods, but more abundantly, it's present in animal foods. So we need to have it in order to make dopamine. So if somebody is on some vegan fruitarian diet, they're not going to be making a lot of them. I was on that diet and I can relate. I did not have any drive to do anything. Also, that's why, for example, when we fast for longer periods of time and the body gets low on L-tyrosine, that's why you're not that motivated to do a lot of stuff. You can't produce that neurotransmitter. But besides that, for example, to make, again, that dopamine, you also need vitamin B6 to convert that L-tyrosine into actual dopamine. And that's where the problems start to happen, because people have all these crazy diets when they're deficient in a lot of micronutrients. And so you might have a lot of one thing, not enough of the other thing, and you get zero dopamine and zero chance to get into flow state, right? And that's just one example. But then, you know, we get serotonin that's even a little bit more complicated, because, yeah, you need, you know, another amino acid, but it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. And it seems that consuming carbohydrates at certain, you know, times in certain amounts help to make more of that. And then we have, again, norepinephrine, we have endorphins, you know, natural high molecules, anandamide. So what I'm trying to say here, if I were to go into all the details right now, it would take another, you know, 20 minutes of our talk to just explain all the complexity of that. And I just want to mention that every single, you know, of those molecules that need to be in the flow, they require quite a lot of other nutrients interacting with each other in a system. That's why also it's very hard for smart drugs to work all that well, because some person might have a lot of some stuff, and the nootropic, that smart drug will give what's been missing. For some people, they're missing something else, and no matter what kind of smart drug they take, it's not going to be working because they might be deficient in some micronutrients that are also needed to make that happen.
Amazing. That is really interesting stuff. Yeah. And it's funny because I do feel as though that, well, touching on the last thing that you said about the nootropics, I found that, even big brands where everybody's just orangutanging over, it's amazing. I'm like, I tried it and it didn't work for me. And yeah, so yeah, fascinating. So definitely a case of looking into nutrition, and that's, yeah, really interesting. And the dogmatic dietary approach. So I understand that vegan can be quite detrimental in terms of the right minerals. You might be able to get the protein profile if you know how to mix the different plants together, which most people don't. They think, all right, I'm going to get my protein from this plant. Like, mate, what is the matter with you? But what about those that are carnivore? Have you looked much into that? Like people who are like,
I was one of those people.
Okay, tried that as well. Right, okay. And how did that work for you?
The reason why I'm not vegan, I'm not carnivore, because it didn't work that well. Like, it worked for a little bit, mostly on my enthusiasm. I'm an enthusiastic person.
Enthusiasm. Okay.
Yeah, but then you start getting health problems, like for me with carnivore, with keto diet, what was the problem is, the first problem that started to happen was my energy levels. They really were not energy levels and mental state. So when I don't eat my carbs, I do not seem to produce a lot of serotonin that is very important for positive mental state, for happiness, for well-being. And so I would not be as happy. My thoughts would be more negative than positive. And I'm very introspective, so I would notice that. It's like, I don't usually think like that, but that way of eating makes me feel like that. Then my energy levels, I would be high on energy in the morning, early afternoon, then it kind of would gradually dissipate and disappear, and there was no motivation for me to do anything. And I like to be on when I'm not asleep, I like to have a lot of energy, and when a certain eating approach doesn't give me that, that's the first sign that it's not working. It's not going to be working. And I also want listeners to understand that energy is the currency of life. When something makes you feel like you have less, like you don't have enough, it's only a matter of time that other health problems will follow. Because when certain organ or tissue cell doesn't get enough energy, all the process is going to be compromised and it's going to end up in some health problems down the road, right? So with this diets, more often than not, I would exit before worse things start to happen.
Right.
And then also while I was on this, especially carnivore and keto, I was already studying nutrition quite deeply. And I started to look in all of this, approaches and my own diet pattern. I'm like, okay, but I'm not getting this, vitamin, like especially carnivore, you might not be getting a lot, like even, B vitamins and even some of the B vitamins, because some of the B vitamins actually more in plant-based foods. Or for example, vitamin A, if you don't eat organ meats, not going to be getting a lot of it, right? With keto, for example, if somebody eats a lot of fat, they might be low even on things like iron, because iron is not in fat tissue, it's actually in lean tissue, and if somebody says you eat lower protein, more fat, you're going to end up, with some problems. So what was the question?
Even I forgot. I was like, oh my God, tell me more. Yeah, I think it was mainly to do with like
carnivore. You said carnivore. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that was very comprehensive. That was good. Sorry.
It just, yeah, the main point is that you can get deficient with certain micronutrients on almost any diet. But the problem with carnivore or vegan is that the more food groups and foods you eliminate from your diet, the more micronutrients you eliminate too. Because when you eliminate, a whole group, let's say plants or animal foods, there's a whole range of nutrients that you just took out of your diet. They were easier available in that food, and you took them out and you never put anything back, right? So most people don't think through, or I need these nutrients, I stopped eating that, where am I going to get these nutrients now? Most people don't think like that. I just stop eating and gonna start eating, I don't know, spinach instead of fish, right? But they're not comparable.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I think I think the easiest way to compare is like when you are consuming a certain amount of food and you've got a certain level of activity and you're not doing that level of activity anymore, but you're still consuming the same amount of food. You have to adjust now that your circumstances has changed. But yeah, minerals as well makes sense. I wanted to ask you, what's your thoughts on spiritual stuff? Do you believe in spiritual energy? Do you believe that a person has, I don't know, spiritual strength? Do you believe in that?
I believe in, I think, what you mean by spiritual strengths and spiritual side of human beings. I believe in there is something beyond what we currently can measure and explain with science. I believe there is much more to human being than what we can see, right? Mental states, connection to something beyond what we can experience with our senses. I believe in that, right? What it is, I don't have answers. I just know, for example, let's take intuition. I'm a very intuitive person. Sometimes I can almost feel like this is the thing you gotta do. And the mind does not understand why exactly. There is no logical explanation, but you feel it, you do it, and it works out really damn well. Or for example, you meet a person and you like, I connect so well with that person and I freaking have no idea why. Like, yeah, I mean, certain things, I can understand logically, but a lot of things I don't. And like, why exactly it happens, you also don't understand, right?
Can I add, another question to that? Since I know that, you've got like at least some sort of connection there with spirituality, how would you say food can affect us spiritually?
Well, there are many things, I can think of when it comes to food and spirit, but I often think of a human brain and a human being and as this energy entity, right? Even from quantum physics, everything is energy, and human being is not exception, right? We are all at the core of like energy, vibration, beings, or creation, whatever that might be. And food also vibrates. Every piece of food, it vibrates at a certain energy. You can actually measure that, with the devices that they use in physics. And when we consume certain foods, so those energy, they adapt to our energies. And then we're gonna get this mix, and those energy, they're gonna be translated into thought patterns and emotions, right? So that's, one way the food affects our energy. Then also, if food was changed in some way, it creates like there's different pattern of energy. You took something that was natural, that was kind of compatible with the universal energy, and you changed that, and you completely rebuild that energy into something artificial that our body like energetically is not used to. And then you put it inside your body, and your body has to do that on an energy levels too. And that's where a lot of like clashes can happen, right? And you're like, something is wrong in the body, I'm not sure what. And that might be on energy levels, not so much even, on like digestion or gut level. And then also like when it comes to our brain, it does seem like it's a kind of like an antenna or some sort of like radio wave, I don't know, device. And I believe that when we have foods that are kind of working synergistically with that we can amplify that, we can amplify our sensibility or like sensitivity to certain things. And when we start like put garbage inside of us, that signal kind of get jammed. It's like now you have like all this like weird interferences, and you can't perceive things, and this thing doesn't work as well as it can. Like I'm talking about our brain. And I'm no expert on everything you're really related to food and spirituality, but that's what I learned from my experience, how food changed how I feel energetically, and how certain foods can make me feel better. Certain foods can make me feel worse, not just physically, but also like spiritually. Why I love fruit. Fruit actually has the highest vibrational energy. And when I eat fruit, it makes me feel like happy. I'm like, eat my banana, and I'm like happy. That's all I need. It doesn't matter how much B6 or magnesium it has. Like, I need that also from my foods. That's my take on foods and spirituality. And also it's like not coincidence that when people want to get really close to their spiritual self or their true self, a lot of times they would fast, because every time we consume something, it interferes with that energy that we carry inside. And if you really want to understand the core of yourself, then fasting works really well, because nothing interferes with who you are. That's your energy and yours only, right? So food works also in that way. That's why, I don't know, Jesus or other like spiritual leaders seem to go through long periods of fasting, trying to figure out what this whole life journey is all about.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do love the idea of fasting. Not just the idea. I mean, I practice intermittently, and it's a way of allowing my digestion to rest, but it's like I know it is possible. I know that there's people, indigenously, like, ancestrally, this is a practice which is it's not foreign to us. So I think it's only showing your body some respect to fast, to be honest. And yeah, can bring you a bit more closer to your spirit. That's my thought process on that. Like trying to okay, just sustain from food just a little bit and focus a bit more on your inner spiritual strength. Just live off that. And I think you probably my thought process is like you get a deeper connection with your spirit with the during the fasting process. So that might even be a good time to do a lot of praying. Yeah.
You just made me think about something else. I don't think I thought about it in that way yet. Also, when we fast, all of our blood flow can be diverted to our brain instead of our stomach, right? And usually when there is more blood flow in our brain, it is easier for us to feel connected to that, spirit or divine or universal energies. So it might be, partially one of part of the explanation why we feel more connected to our spirits, our energies when we are fasting, because the energy doesn't go to our stomach, but instead goes higher.
Yeah. That's yeah. I guess I'm just trying to think of like different stuff now because I was thinking maybe if you have like a little bit of dark chocolate and then
Yeah.
fast after that.
That's what I also do before my meditations. I actually am experimenting with adding chocolate before different routines that I do. Like, for example, if I have to speak or create a piece of content, I take it 30 minutes before for allow it to digest and, take an effect. And I see how I mentally feel. And what I noticed from chocolate, meditation goes much better, definitely. And also my content, it's so much easier to create. I just like this, sparkly, I don't know, creative person when I eat more of it. And so, yeah.
All right. What's your thoughts on probiotics? Do you take any, or do you have any kind of fermented type of foods? Like, what's your thoughts throughout all of the? It's such a big thing right now. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, we have trillions of bacteria in our gut. I think it's at this point, it's impossible to deny that bacteria that we carry in our gut, they matter a lot, a lot. Like they change the way we think, the way we feel physically and mentally and emotionally. Probiotics are basically those similar bacteria that we have in our gut, but in form of supplement or fermented food. And the more we consume beneficial probiotics, the more we seem to do health-wise. And also they affect things like dopamine or serotonin, right? Those neurotransmitters that makes us driven or happier. When it comes to fermented foods, I'm a huge fan. I consume, I need to drink water. Probiotic foods, yeah. I consume half a liter of yogurt every day.
Right. That's more
Yeah.
water than some people drink. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, just my throat for some reason doesn't feel that good.
Do you think half a liter of yogurt a day? That's
So the reason being it, I love yogurt. That's one of the reasons. But the second reason is the more beneficial bacteria you consume, the more there is the chance that they're gonna outnumber potentially harmful bacteria, and the better your gut gonna be. The thing about probiotic-rich foods and probiotics in general, most of them are transient. So they do not stay in our gut, right? They like kind of come into our gut, do their job for a while, and then they go out. That's what the science seems to show. The only, well, there are a couple, but more powerful way to change our gut microbiome consistently, so it does change for a prolonged period of time, is changing your diet. Because what you feed your gut bacteria, that's the kind of bacteria that's going to stick in your gut, right? If you starve certain bacteria, they're not going to be there because they're not going to have food available. So the point here is, yeah, you can be taking a lot of probiotics, probiotic-rich foods, but if your diet still feeds bacteria that is harmful to you, that's the guys who's going to stick there. Probiotic gonna come in, come out, that's it. So that's why it's important to go diet first and eat those prebiotic foods, right, that feed beneficial gut bacteria. That's gonna actually affect gut microbiome, gut health much better and in a more powerful way than eating like probiotic rich foods or probiotics. I'm not saying again that they're useless, they have their usage, but they're more transient than what you get with changing your diet.
That's really, really good. I also, what did I read somewhere that, what was it? Popped in my head and then it just flowed back out again. Yeah. Need to work on my nutrition, I think.
It's fine. I told you, eggs and alpha GPC that is in the brain translated into acetylcholine that is important for memory formation.
All right. All right. Okay. Alpha GPC. Where am I going to
I'm
get that
taking
from?
it.
Huh?
I'm taking it every
You're
day.
taking it. Okay. Alpha GPC people. Yeah, I'll need to look into that. Get a high dosage. Where can I get some of those the acetylcholine from? What sort of foods?
Eggs, the only
Eggs.
richest foods available. And since we also for quite a while been hearing this cholesterol, it's gonna kill you, don't eat eggs, eat egg whites. That's why people are still freaking scared. And when I talk about eggs, but what about cholesterol? Like it's even been taken off the website of heart, or like whatever that organization was that put it out there. They even took it down. So forget about cholesterol in eggs. Liver makes most of the cholesterol. So I'm just, eggs, yeah.
So, would you suggest any particular egg which has a higher amount of acetylcholine than another type? What's the best way to
Um,
cook it and the best form? Would you
so
have?
for acetylcholine, it's the again neurotransmitter that the brain needs to make to put us into a state of focused attention required to make memories and to learn things. It's also important for rapid eye movement sleep, where we kind of bring together emotional stuff so we have better mental health. That's why it's also very important. um, so the richer sources are eggs, specifically egg yolks, right? And so if you have an opportunity to get an egg that has bigger yolk, that's what I would get. Yeah, I found that duck eggs usually have like much bigger yolk. Not sure actually if they have it more acetylcholine, but potentially might have. Since you need to eat 4 eggs every day to get the acetylcholine you need, I recommend to supplement because, well, I don't personally want to eat 4 eggs every day and be stuck with eggs for life, so that's why supplement come in handy. Like I love eggs, but sometimes not all the time. And also for you, Roger, might be a useful piece of information. That acetylcholine is being used for muscle contraction. And you can only have so much, right, from food. So if you get your acetylcholine and you use a lot of it for your workouts and your muscle mass, then you might not have enough for your brain and your
Oh
memory.
wow! So you end up stupid. Wow. That was a polite way of saying.
Not
Yes,
stupid, but your memory can be
bro.
compromised.
No, only playing. But that's really good to know. That's really good to know. Okay, yeah, thank you.
So yeah, that's why, especially if somebody, what I was trying to say actually, especially if you're into fitness, into muscle mass, building muscle mass, then you just want to provide your brain a little bit extra support for memory formation. Because what I also want listeners to understand is that the brain always makes decision and prioritizes things. So if you are into physical training, into fitness and muscles, the brain will prioritize strengths and will give the acetylcholine to your muscles because it's immediate survival versus your long-term memory that you might not even need because you're going to be dead in 30 years. Not saying that, but that's the logic. Long-term is always pushed aside to immediate survival, right?
Mm.
That's
It,
why.
it's like the difference between REM and deep sleep. Like the body will prioritize the deep sleep if you're in
Yeah,
deprivation, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I had some crap sleep. I think it was yesterday. And yeah, it was like, do you know what? Let's put it all to deep sleep. Brain, let's not worry about that for now. And that was just written off. And I was trying to figure out my day. Like, I was like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like, as long as you can move, that's what we need to
Yeah.
focus on.
For today. Yeah. As long as you can move, get your food, that's all we care.
Yeah. You'd mentioned about like the full spectrum of different types of foods, and some people will put um, on a I don't know, almost like an annihilation list a list of Kryptonite Foods in the bracket of, oh, shall I say, legumes in that sort of bracket of like kryptonite. You shouldn't eat it. Some people see it as, yeah, just eliminate legumes from your diet. What's your thoughts on that?
I think people should use more science more often. So somebody can say, or it's not paleo food, or, it can cause inflammation. So for some people, it might cause inflammation because maybe they have some, genetic predisposition. Maybe their gut bacteria doesn't really like it that much for one reason or the other. But for other people, it might be not the case at all. And how do you use science? Usually, if we are intolerant to some food or it really causes a lot of problems, inflammation levels go up. And the good thing, now we can measure it. This C-reactive protein, at least, like, measure it. If you think that beans might not be good for you, measure it before, eliminate them, measure after, introduce them, measure after. That's how you know if anything actually changes, or it's just in your head and, placebo or nocebo effect. Like, doesn't really make a difference, right? And then also, of course, monitor your own energy levels. Like, if you eat properly prepared beans and lentils and you feel totally fine, like I do, I actually feel really amazing eating chickpeas and lentils. Like, I can eat, a lot of them. So if you feel fine, most often than not, you are fine. And just because somebody says it's not paleo doesn't mean shit. Like, certain, tribes, people, populations, they evolved eating certain foods. And just because somebody says now it's not paleo, it doesn't change the fact. Like, I'm talking about dairy products. Some tribes, they evolved for thousands of years eating dairy products, and they have completely different genes and microbiome suitable for digesting that. And so if the person has this genetic and this gut microbiome phenotype, then they're going to be fine with dairy. And it doesn't matter if it's paleo or not.
I like that. Makes total sense. And as you was talking about those foods there, it did make me think, I do like chickpeas. I really do. But it does make me bloat. Yeah, it does. It does.
Maybe also cooking, you see, like chickpeas, you need to soak them for 10, 12 hours. You need to
I soak them for 24.
Yeah. Maybe not your food.
Yeah. I soak the hell out of them and I slow cook it. Yeah. Rest in peace. But anyway, yeah. But that's cool. That's good to know. Don't just eliminate. Test it out to see how you're feeling first before you decide to, jump on a bandwagon of like, not having stuff. What sort of foods would you help is good to help people to sleep better? Would you say there's certain types of food for that? I know that there's like day nootropics and there's like nighttime nootropics to help to, induce melatonin. Are there certain types of foods which you reckon that are, I don't know, good precursors for deep sleep or something?
Well, I think a balanced diet is a good precursor for good sleep, in a sense that even to make sleep happen, things like serotonin that are important, or for example, for REM sleep, you need acetylcholine from those eggs, right? Making sure that you consume those foods is a good start. Like, protein-rich foods, again, making serotonin requires protein. It also requires B6. Like, if you don't get those, so your body might not be able to produce enough of those neurotransmitters to keep you asleep. And obviously, for each person, it's a little bit different. For me personally, what I also noticed, for some people, to make serotonin and to be able to absorb it in the brain, you need carbohydrates to kind of push it through the blood-brain barrier. Like, there is, in nutritional psychiatry, there is such a thing that you need to have like certain boosters to make certain things cross blood-brain barrier. And for serotonin, for some people, it seems that carbohydrates are essential to push it through to our brain. I'm that kind of person. So if I don't eat my carbohydrates during the day and I go, low carb on keto, my sleep, the duration of it, the quality gets really compromised. So for me, carbohydrates are essential for good quality sleep. And I also notice that I need them later in the day, like around 4 or 5 p.m. If I eat too early carbohydrates, also my sleep not going to be that great. So that just for me, but I also noticed for a lot of my clients the same issue. They would try to go low carb and keto, and then their sleep is just trash. And I'm like, well, eat sweet potato with dinner, see how it happens. And for a lot of people, it's like that. They're like, yeah, I can sleep all right.
Yeah.
Then there are things that are either have melatonin-like substances or help to produce more melatonin, things like cherries, tart cherries, or kiwis also. There are quite a few foods, but I haven't looked into all of them. Then there is magnesium. Seems like being deficient in magnesium interferes with sleep. And a lot of people who are deficient in magnesium, they also tend not to have good quality sleep. So supplementing with that might be a good idea, especially magnesium threonate. That seems to be the latest like hack for sleep.
Right.
It's crosses blood-brain barrier much easier. And people again report improvements in sleep.
What foods would you say is good, like in magnesium?
Magnesium is a very tricky thing. It is actually quite a lot of it is in rice. Some other
See how
grains.
that's tricky.
Mm?
I see how that's tricky, especially if you got to eat rice to get it. Wow.
Yeah, there is quite some in things like pumpkin seeds. We have cashews, we have Brazil nuts, but then again, you need to eat quite a lot of them, and then calorie aspect becomes an issue. Also, there is some in things like spinach and Swiss chard, but you also need to eat quite a lot of it to be, quite a fan. That's why I recommend for most people to supplement with magnesium, right? I supplement with it. I've been supplementing with it. There are like no negative side effects, except for some people, too much causes diarrhea, but you'll know it that it does. So when it comes to magnesium, I truly recommend to supplement with that or get mineral water. When I was back in Siberia, we had one brand of mineral water that delivered 1,200 milligrams of magnesium in 1 liter naturally.
Oh,
So, yeah.
straight from the stream or something. Or was that fortified water?
No, it was natural mineral water,
Right.
and it was actually from Slovakia, and it was just available at the stores where I would shop. And yeah, it had a ton of magnesium, ton of calcium, and that's where I didn't supplement with it.
Interesting.
So sleep, magnesium, yeah, I would say that. And of course, things like drinking too much caffeine or alcohol, right before going to bed or with your dinner, it can actually help you to kind of fall asleep, but your sleep is going to be compromised. It's going to be disrupted. It's going to be more lighter, and also REM sleep will suffer a lot. Right? So not drinking alcohol with dinner, managing your caffeine, probably 10 hours before bedtime, stopping all the caffeine is a good idea. Not eating close to bedtime, 3-4 hours before bed. Those will work much better than any of the foods I actually mentioned. If somebody eats right before bed, a lot of food, drinks a lot of caffeine, drinks alcohol, that's going to screw up sleep.
Mm,
A lot.
yeah. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I've always wondered to myself, I don't tend to have coffee later than normally. Once I have it in the morning, I don't normally have it later, to be honest.
Mhm.
And I know lots of people who have 3 or 4 cups. I've even read online it's okay to have maybe 3, or I think 3 is probably okay. But I just tend to have one strong one in the morning, and that tends to tie me through okay, having normal food. I know that if I have it later, especially if it is past 1, for me, that's too late. Past
Yeah.
1 o'clock, that's too late. I might as well have it at 9 o'clock in the evening because I just won't be able to sleep.
I'm
And
so the same. Yeah.
yeah,
For me, usually 10 a.m. it's actually a cutoff time.
Right. Okay.
That's where I feel the best. Yeah. It's like, so for example, now it's almost 8 a.m. I'm gonna drink my coffee for the next, maybe a couple of hours, gonna have a couple of cups and that's it. And if I want to have taste of coffee, I'm gonna go for decaf somewhere early afternoon, but that's already gonna be decaf.
Right. Right. That's cool. That's cool. What's your thoughts on where to get the decaf? I mean, I've heard some different stories on that with decaf, chemicals being used to strip the caffeine and that sort of thing. I mean, I know a reputable brand that does it ethically. Like, do you go get yours from a calf, or do you know how it's done?
Yeah, with my decaf, I don't have it often, so I just usually go to any cafe and get my decaf there. I'm not like that. I would say obsessive about things, like even yesterday I was talking to a couple and they were all like, oh, we are vegans and sometimes fruitarian, and then we work on this detoxes. We
And
use
then you
solar.
start talking to them. Only joke.
Oh Oh my God, guys, where do you have time for all of this? Like, if I had to think about every single piece like that, I would not accomplish anything, At some point, it just like, it's good enough, You're doing much better. Like, most of my foods, I don't eat any junk food, I don't drink, I, sleep, I exercise. Do you really need to think where my decaf once in a while come from?
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
No, I get that. I get that. Like, I have my days where I'll have, let's say, sin food. Most people call it cheat meal. I call it sin food, where I'll have certain foods which is not normally part of my menu, which is just for pleasure purposes, really. Like, I don't know, fornication. It's like, it's not for recreate. Okay, let's not get too deep into that. But I just eat it, and I know that I'm not eating it for nutrition. I understand that there's probably going to have things in there that shouldn't be in there, and I just think about, all right, mitigation strategy. Once I have this, I get what I can out of it and continue on with my life. You do have some people that are biohackers that are just, everything is calculated from the moment they wake up. They wake up and they're taking the tape from their mouth. I don't need to mouth tape. Let me check my temperature and all my wearables. Okay, all the data is okay, and they're removing they've got this tent over their bed to stop any sort of EMF. Now, this is no dig at anyone who's a biohacker. Much respect and love to you guys. It's just, I wonder what it's like to be out in the open and breathing normal air that might be slightly contaminated.
Earth is not clean, and it's never going to get to the pristine state. Never going to happen. It is what it is. We live in the times where we live in. And at the end of the day, you want to ask yourself, like, what's your life all about? Do you want to really spend every waking hour of your day like thinking about all this technology and how to stay clean and where this coming from and this, or you actually want to do something and maybe make this world better? We all have a limited amount of focus, energy, and time. Do you really want to spend all of your time and energy thinking about all of this stuff? Like, at some point I had to ask myself this question: when is it enough, Angela? What is good enough, and what do you actually want to do in this life? And when I honestly answered this question, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be an expert on detoxes and be the cleanest version of myself ever, like possible. No, I actually want to do something, with my life, and that requires being flexible, and that requires having a little bit of mess in your life, and that requires, not being that possessive and obsessive about all of the things that can possibly go wrong. So that's my take on it. Sometimes things are just good enough and it's fine.
Yeah, thank you. That was pretty cool. So, one thing I'm interested in, I know you'd mentioned on one of your posts about the benefit of vitamin A and how it has a synergistic effect on other stuff. Would you be able to go into that? Like, what's most people these days know, okay, I should have vitamin D. People
Mhm,
understand vitamin C. Vitamin
mhm.
A, like, where does that fit in the whole equation? Why should anyone care? I mean, obviously we should, but like,
Yeah, it's a good question in many senses, but specifically, I'd like to focus a little bit on the synergistic effect. So all of the vitamins and minerals, they're kind of like a team. We need vitamin A, for certain things that I'll explain in a moment. But then to activate it, we also need zinc, right? And there are some other nutrients that we need to extract that zinc from our foods, right? And so if we miss one, we miss the other, and then we might be eating all the vitamin A we need, but there is no zinc to activate it. That is literally needed to activate that vitamin A. They're kind of like very tight team, right? You don't get zinc, you don't get your vitamin A. Vitamin A, all vitamins and minerals, they play essential role in some processes in our body, right? But vitamin A specifically, I find it fascinating because a lot of people talk these days about, obviously sleep and how important it is to have to view light at certain times of the day to balance your circadian rhythm. So you go to sleep on time, so you wake up refreshed, you sleep well. So circadian rhythm in our body, like all these processes, they're very important. And it's important to view light at a certain time of the day, natural light, and then not seeing artificial light. It's important for that circadian rhythm. And viewing that light is important for circadian rhythm. And what vitamin A does, it's locating, I think it's in the retina, but in our eyes. And when light of certain spectrum, certain light waves hit our eyes, they hit molecules of vitamin A that then triggers that biochemical and also probably electrical reaction that travels to our brain, that brain center that is in charge of analyzing those light signals. And that brain center tells the rest of the body, okay, this is the kind of light we're getting, and that means that this is, let's say, morning, or let's say this is afternoon or night, and it's time to go to bed soon, right? Without vitamin A, that doesn't happen. You can be looking at the sun and nothing will happen, literally.
wow.
And vitamin A, most abundantly and most bioavailable, it is in organ meat, specifically liver. So liver is the organ where we accumulate vitamin A, all of the mammals, humans and other animals. Organ meats, not that popular these days, obviously. We get some of that vitamin D from things like egg yolks that are also not that popular because of cholesterol. Animal foods in general are getting less popular these days. We can get provitamin A, meaning a substance in plants that can be made into vitamin A that we can actually use. We can get that from plants, but it has to be converted by the body. And for that to happen, microbiome has to be quite healthy. Some substances can interfere with that conversion. Some substances in medications, sometimes in other foods, like especially if a person eats a lot of anti-nutrients in plants, like beans or lentils, if they're plant-based and they have that going on. And yeah, so we can convert that vitamin A from things like sweet potatoes, pumpkins, spinach also has quite a lot. But the conversion rate, it is different for many people, and sometimes it can be really not effective. And so the person might not be getting either a sufficient amount of vitamin A or not enough at all, right? Because maybe they have poor gut health. And then no vitamin A, no light signal that normalizes our circadian rhythm, and then it doesn't matter how well your sleep routine is organized, you're not going to be sleeping that well, right? And your like sleep pattern is going to be all over the place. But then the tricky also part, I don't think we ever talked about that, is that vitamin A needs zinc to be activated. And where do we find zinc? We find it most abundantly in lean tissue of animal foods.
Sorry,
And yeah, you can get some from things like pumpkin seeds, but then it's bound to, again, those phytates and other chemicals in plants that the plant uses to preserve those minerals. But what happens when we eat them, it also like binds those minerals and doesn't let them go. Instead you just poop it out, right? And so a lot of zinc just, you eat it on paper, but it's not used in your body. And that's just, kind of like to give listeners a glimpse of how complex that system is, nutrition, and how all these nutrients affect each other and affect our body. And then, I remember just one thing, you were talking about fat loss, right? And, how people are trying to lose weight and stuff like that. A lot of people don't also realize that in order for the chemical reaction of burning fat happen in our body, we also need certain vitamins. Like B2 is specifically, it's crucial for the chemical reaction of burning fat for energy to happen. And so B2, where can we find it? In organ meats like liver or that's just, it's also found, in some animal products, but you need to eat quite a lot of them. It can be supplemented with things like fortified nutritional yeast, but not all of the vegans do that, and then you might be trying to lose all that fat and you're like, why is it not working? I'm doing all that stuff, but I seem to not be as effective, at weight loss, at fat loss specifically, right? And part of the reason why I look so lean is because I have all the micronutrients to burn all that fat.
yeah.
When my body needs to burn it, it has everything.
Amazing. No, that's really fascinating stuff. The whole synergistic and organ meat, that kind of seems like the power food. Like that seems like the superfood right there,
Yeah.
And everything just goes straight to the organs. What's your idea of biohacks? It's a term which is used quite heavily now. I guess people have different thought processes on it. What's your idea on biohacking, and what sort of biohacks would you say you do?
Mm-hmm. I remember not so long ago, I got kind of like passionate discussion about biohacking on social media, and how one of the like big nutritional influencers, he was saying that he hates this term because it's very unscientific. To which I replied that, it's just the term that people use to explain this phenomenon of modifying intentionally our environment to change our biology. So there is nothing wrong with the term. It's, just the word. But yeah, biohacking is that, changing your environment to change your biology, or the way you feel, the way you look. And with that, anything can really be a biohack that you use with that purpose. I view sunlight every morning to restart my circadian rhythm, to have good sleep. It is a biohack. You don't do that and your sleep gonna compromise. Also, if I also very mindful about bright light at night. It's very dark in my place at night, and I use it specifically to help my body to transition to sleep. And that is also a biohack, managing your light environment, right? Or taking cold shower. I know that increases your dopamine for several hours instantaneously for up to 300%. That is a biohack.
Right.
So yeah, but it works better than coffee.
So would you suggest it's not a good idea before bed then? Like a cold shower before bed?
probably not such a great idea. It's actually recommended to take hot shower or hot bath, because then there's going to be a drop in temperature between hot to cold, because your body going to try to cool you down, and that actually a more natural change in the temperature to induce sleep.
Okay.
Than from hot to cold at night. So that is also a biohack, using temperature to help yourself sleep better. Or, for example, I sleep here in Mexico with air conditioner. Why? Because if I don't, it gets hot and I wake up, because for the body also temperature is a sign, when it gets warmer to get up, because the day is about to start, right? So I set my aircon for a specific temperature, usually 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 90 degrees Celsius or so.
Sorry, 19 degrees Celsius.
19, degrees Celsius.
Right.
That's also a biohack, right? When I, during the day, feel sleepy, for example, not sleepy, but, my cognitive capacity starts to decline a little bit, I do hyperventilation or Wim Hof breathing type of thing. And it is also backed by neuroscience that, that does increase our alertness, feeling awake, and it does increase our focus via increasing certain neurotransmitters. Or if I'm about to give a talk and I'm a little bit more excited and jittery than I'd like to be for the talk, what I would do, if I would do the opposite. So I would do deep breathing in and breathing out really, really, really slowly, right? That's also good for digestion, actually. So that's also a form of biohacking. And I can go on and on and on of the things I do. Almost everything I do is on purpose, with intention.
Very important.
Yeah. When it comes to technology, I'm not so much into that, just because of the state of it. It's more right now, it's more like being fancy, or I have this Oura-ring, it can tell me my heart rate. I can feel my heart rate. You don't need to tell me what it is.
Yeah. I hear that.
And but then also, taking certain foods is also a biohack. Like, I know if I eat yogurt with cacao and certain nuts and seeds before doing an important event or presentation, my brain is going to be on fire. And that is also a biohack. But if I eat a huge meal, I'm going to be sleepy. I know that. So I'm not going to be doing that. And when you're aware of that and you use it with intention, it is also a form of biohacking.
Amazing.
Yeah, the same with supplements, all of that stuff. I know when I take stuff, what I take for what purpose. And that is biohacking, because it changes how I feel.
Your biological and your biochemistry, you know exactly what's going on and how much of it you need to have in order to get the desired result.
Like that alpha GPC, I'm taking it in the morning for focus, and then also taking it later in the afternoon, when again my capacity to think or remember or learn starts to decline. So I'm taking it to boost it up a little bit.
I'm noting that down. Alpha GPC.
Yeah, Andrew Huberman loves it.
Oh, is it?
He talks about that.
He's talking about it. Yeah, and you know your stuff as well. So, all right. Alpha GPC. Any particular brands?
No, just make sure there is nothing else but that, and also 300 milligrams a couple of times per day.
300 milligrams. Okay, a couple times. Lovely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Look, Angela, it's been over 2 hours. Wow. It's been a while since I had a podcast this long. I think the last one I had was 45 minutes and we was pushing it. This is just easy. Thank you.
Yeah, you made it happen. You asked such great questions, and that made me just want to talk about this topic.
But what's great is that you know exactly, it's your passion. It's your passion. It's not just you know what to say, it's your passion for it that makes it more interesting and so free flowing. So much appreciated. It's been phenomenal. I've learned so much. Definitely going to take on board much of this for myself. Forget listeners. But Where can people find you? Because they need to know about your social media channels and like, I don't know, anything else where people can pick up some of your info, some of your great advice. You're on Instagram.
Yes,
What is your page called on Instagram?
1,000 number, year young. So 1,000 year young.
1,000 year young. Okay. Why did you pick that name? Just out of curiosity.
My hidden agenda is to live very, very long.
Oh, wow.
That's my goal.
Wow. I think maybe the oldest I've heard a person say is maybe 200, possibly just over 200. 1,000 is, that's a goal. Okay. All right. Cool. And any other platform that you're...
Actually, my podcast, Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner, I do podcasts Monday to Friday, usually, and I talk all about the latest nutritional insights and hacks, or sometimes I just talk about, solving a very specific problem for someone I work with. But yeah.
Amazing. Did you say that's Monday to Friday?
Yes.
Wow. You are busy. And what's it called? Food School?
Smarter, Stronger, Leaner.
Smarter, Stronger, Leaner. Okay, I'm going to note that down.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm now on 1,000 something episode. So I've been doing
Wow, I believe that. Considering how long this podcast went, I feel like it was just warming up. It's incredible. Well done. Well done.
And also, maybe we'll be able to link my article on breakfast, focused breakfast. So it's about foods that people can have for breakfast to get their brain focused really well. It's going to come out on entrepreneur.com this Sunday. So I think that could be also something really interesting.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. You give me the link once it's ready and I'll definitely put it in the show notes so people can find it. Angela, wow, it's been superb. Definitely,
Thank you, Roger, for having me.
Again, for sure.
Maybe at that time we'll focus on brain nutrition. That's, my passion for, I think, the next, I don't know, maybe decade, maybe couple.
Yeah, I think a lot of people need that, to be honest with you. Brain nutrition, the amount of weird people I'm seeing on the street these days, they're definitely lacking. But Angela, thank you once again. It has been phenomenal. Yeah, it's been great.
Roger. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you having me.
No problem. God bless you. You take care.